Dr. Hansol wiped the sweat from his forehead as he stared at the massive crystal structure before him. The ruins of Kepler 442b stretched across the horizon like a broken dream. Once, this planet had been home to millions of Velrani people. Now it was just dust and empty buildings that reached toward a cold sky. The dating is confirmed, Dr. Yujin called out from behind her scanner. The linguist had been working on the site for 3 weeks now. This civilization died out exactly 47,000 years ago. Just like the others we found. Commander Dongwook joined them at the base of the Crystal Tower. His military background made him useful for these dangerous expeditions to dead worlds. Any idea what killed them? The buildings look fine. No signs of war or natural disaster. Hansol shook his head. That was the mystery that had brought them here. 12 different worlds. 12 different alien races. All of them had reached the stars. All of them had built great civilizations. And all of them had simply vanished without any clear reason why. The archives are intact, Yujin said, pointing to the glowing crystals that lined the tower walls. The Velrani stored their knowledge in these crystal matrices. I should be able to translate their final records. The team had spent months traveling from one dead world to another. Each time they found the same thing. Advanced technology left behind, no signs of violence. No evidence of plague or disaster. Just empty cities and silent machines that had once served living beings. Hansol walked closer to the crystal wall. The Velrani had been a peaceful race from what they could tell. Their art showed scenes of family gatherings and scientific discoveries. Their buildings were designed for comfort rather than defense. They seemed to have lived good lives right up until the end. I am getting something, Yujin said suddenly. Her translation device was humming as it worked to decode the alien language. This is strange. The message keeps repeating in multiple languages. Multiple languages? Dongwook asked. You mean they spoke more than one? No, Yujin replied, frowning at her readings. These are different alien languages. Languages from other species entirely. It is like they were trying to make sure everyone could understand this message. Hansol felt a chill run down his spine. What does it say? Yujin read from her screen, her voice growing quiet. Beware the third planet of Sol, it never sleeps. We ignored this truth and paid the price. The 3 humans stood in silence for a long moment. Sol was their sun. Earth was the third planet from Sol. The message was about their homeworld. That cannot be right, Dongwook said. Run it again. Yujin checked her translation twice more. Each time the message came out the same. A warning about Earth written by an alien race that had died thousands of years before humans had even learned to make fire. There is more, Yujin continued. Listen to this part. They do not rest as we do. Their world turns, but they do not sleep with it. When darkness comes, they make light. When winter comes, they make warmth. They never stop moving forward. Hansol walked around the crystal tower, studying the carvings more carefully. Now that he looked closer, he could see patterns he had missed before. The same symbols appeared over and over again. The same warning carved into stone and crystal in dozens of different ways. How many other sites have we visited? He asked. 11 before this one, Dongwook replied, all showing the same pattern. Advanced civilizations that reached their peak and then disappeared. And did we find similar warnings at those sites? Yujin was already pulling up her notes from their previous expeditions. Her face grew pale as she read through them. Yes, every single site. The Corvani ruins on Tau Ceti had warnings carved into their central temple. The Zephyrian homeworld had the same message written in their most sacred texts. She continued reading. The Draknari left warnings in their military bunkers. The hegemony carved them into their star maps. Every race we have studied left warnings about Earth. Dongwook was pacing now, his military mind working through the implications. Warnings about Earth left by species that lived thousands of years apart. Species that probably never met each other, but they all came to the same conclusion about humanity. The question is, Hansol said slowly, what did they all see in us that made them so afraid? Yujin continued translating the Velrani records. The crystal archives contained decades of observations about distant Earth. The Velrani had been watching humanity from afar, studying human civilization through their long-range sensors. They were fascinated by our cities, Yujin reported. Look at this entry. The lights never go out completely. Even in their darkest hours, the human settlements glow with activity. While we rest through the long night cycles, they continue their work. Hansol thought about Earth's great cities, New York, Tokyo, London, Lagos, cities that truly never slept. There was always someone awake, always someone working, always lights shining somewhere. Here is another entry, Eugene continued. The humans do not observe proper seasonal dormancy. When their world tilts away from their star, bringing cold and darkness, they do not retreat into rest as we do. Instead, they burn fuel to stay warm and create artificial light to extend their active periods. For the Velrani, who hibernated through their planet's long winters, human behavior must have seemed unnatural, maybe even frightening. The final entries are the most disturbing, Eugene said, her voice dropping to a whisper. They tried to calculate how fast human civilization was advancing. Their conclusion was that humans would reach the stars within a few thousand years. But here is the terrifying part. They predicted that once humans left their world, they would never stop expanding. Dongwook stopped pacing. Never stop expanding? According to the Velrani calculations, most species explore space in cycles. They expand for a time, then consolidate and rest. But humans show no such pattern. The Velrani believed that humans would spread across the galaxy without pause, without rest, without ever stopping to be satisfied with what they had achieved. Hansol stared up at the alien sky, trying to imagine how Earth must have appeared to these ancient observers. A world that never went completely dark, a species that never completely rested, people who refused to accept the natural cycles of dormancy and recovery that governed all other known forms of life. We need to report this to Earth Station Alpha, he said finally. Admiral So-Young needs to know what we found here. But even as he said it, Hansol wondered if anyone would believe them. Warnings about humanity left by extinct alien civilizations, predictions that Earth would become a threat to the entire galaxy, simply because humans never learned when to stop. The ancient warnings painted a picture of humanity that Hansol had never considered before, not as conquerors or warriors, but as something perhaps more frightening to alien minds. A species that never accepted limits, never accepted defeat, and never accepted the idea that progress should have an ending point. As they packed up their equipment and prepared to leave the dead world behind, Hansol could not shake the feeling that they were carrying more than just archaeological data back to Earth. They were carrying a warning about themselves. Dr. Boram arrived at Earth Station Alpha 3 days after the YAI archaeological team returned from Kepler 442b. The xenolinguist had been called in specifically to help decode the growing collection of alien warnings about Earth. Her reputation for cracking impossible alien languages made her the obvious choice for this disturbing mystery. She settled into the research lab where Dr. Hansol and his team had spread out artifacts from 12 different dead worlds. Crystal tablets, metal inscriptions, stone carvings, and digital storage devices covered every available surface. Each one contained the same basic message about Earth, but the details varied in ways that made Boram's skin crawl. Show me the oldest warning first, she said to Dr. Eugene. Eugene pulled up a holographic display showing symbols carved into meteoric iron. This comes from the Threnody civilization. They died out 53,000 years ago. Their homeworld was in the Vega system. Boram studied the ancient symbols. The Threnody had used a complex pictographic writing system that combined visual elements with mathematical concepts. It took her several hours to fully decode their message, but when she did, the results made her hands shake. They were watching us, she said quietly. The Threnody had long-range observation technology. They could see Earth from 27 light-years away. Listen to what they wrote. She read from her translation. The small blue world orbits a yellow star. Life covers its surface but does not rest as life should. Day and night mean nothing to them. Seasons mean nothing to them. They burn fuel to extend their active time beyond what nature allows. Captain Wu Jin, the military strategist assigned to analyze the tactical implications of the discoveries, looked up from his own research. That matches what we found in the Corvani records. They were monitoring human development for centuries before their civilization collapsed. Boram moved to the next set of artifacts. These came from a race called the Meridani, who had ruled a small empire near the galactic core. Their warning was more specific and far more troubling. The Meridani tried to understand human psychology, Boram explained as she translated their records. They studied our behavior patterns and came to a conclusion that terrified them. They believed humans were incapable of accepting permanent defeat. She pulled up more text from the Meridani archives. They documented human history from space. They watched our wars, our disasters, our failures, but what scared them was not our violence. It was our response to setbacks. What do you mean? Asked Commander Dongwook. Every other species they studied would eventually accept defeat and stop trying. If a colony failed, they would abandon that type of expansion. If a technology proved too difficult, they would focus on easier solutions. But humans never did that. Boram showed them images the Meridani had captured of Earth during various historical periods. Pictures of cities rebuilt after earthquakes, farms replanted after floods, ships launched again after disasters at sea. The Meridani wrote that humans treat every failure as temporary, every defeat as a delay rather than an ending. They found this behavior so unusual that they classified humans as a unique type of species. Wu Jin was taking notes rapidly. From a military perspective, this information was both fascinating and worrying. What classification did they give us? They called us persistence predators of the mind. They believed humans were the only known species that applied hunting persistence to intellectual and social challenges, instead of just physical ones. Dr. Yujin looked confused. What does that mean exactly? Boram explained. Most predators give up a chase after a certain point. It costs too much energy to continue. But persistence predators like ancient humans would track prey for days or weeks until the animal died of exhaustion. The Meridani thought we applied this same strategy to everything we do. She showed them more Meridani observations. They watched us try to fly for thousands of years. Every failure should have convinced us it was impossible. Every death should have made us stop trying. But we never stopped. We just learned from each failure and tried again. The implications were starting to sink in for everyone in the room. Boram continued translating records from other dead civilizations, and the pattern became clearer with each new piece of evidence. The Draknari had been a warrior race that conquered dozens of star systems. Their warning about Earth was found in their most secure military archives. They do not fight like warriors. They fight like a plague that learns. Each battle teaches them. Each defeat makes them stronger. They will adapt until they cannot be stopped. The Zephyrians had been master traders who built commercial networks across hundreds of worlds. Their warning was written in the language of economics. They do not rest their production cycles. While we pause to consolidate profits, they continue expanding. Their compound growth will eventually consume all markets. One by one, Boram translated warnings from 12 different civilizations. Each race had observed humans from their own perspective and reached the same terrifying conclusion. Humans never stop trying to improve their situation. Here is what really scares me, Boram said after finishing the last translation. These civilizations did not just leave warnings. Some of them tried to do something about the threat they saw. She pulled up records from 3 different races showing evidence of military expeditions sent toward Earth, fleets of warships, launched with the specific goal of destroying human civilization before it could spread to the stars. What happened to those fleets? Wu Jin asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. None of them ever returned home, Boram replied. The civilizations that sent them reported losing contact with the expeditions. No wreckage was ever found. No survivors ever came back. Dongwook was studying star charts, tracing the routes those ancient fleets would have taken to reach Earth. These attacks happened at different times across thousands of years. If they all failed, that means someone or something was protecting Earth even in prehistoric times. Or, Wu Jin said grimly, it means that even Stone Age humans were dangerous enough to defeat starfaring civilizations. Boram found one final message that made everyone in the room fall silent. It came from the last survivors of the Corvani Empire, written just before their civilization finally collapsed. We sent 7 fleets to stop them before they could leave their world. 7 fleets with weapons that could crack planets. 7 fleets that vanished without a trace. We realize now that we were not fighting an enemy we could defeat. We were fighting an enemy that refuses to be defeated. They are still there on their small blue world, still growing stronger, still learning from every challenge we sent them. By the time they reach the stars, they will be unstoppable because they have never learned to stop. The research lab fell into heavy silence. 12 dead civilizations, all of them more advanced than current human technology. All of them destroyed by some unknown force after leaving warnings about Earth. And now humanity had finally reached the stars. Just as the ancient warnings had predicted, the question was no longer what had happened to those lost civilizations. The question was what would happen when the rest of the galaxy discovered that the species they had feared for 50,000 years was now spreading across the stars. Boram looked around at her human colleagues and wondered if any of them truly understood what they had uncovered. They had found evidence that humanity was considered the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known. Not because they were violent or cruel, but because they never gave up. The warnings were not about human aggression. They were about human persistence. And now that persistence was about to be tested on a galactic scale, Ambassador Jin-A had never seen the Galactic Council chamber so tense. Representatives from 47 different species sat in their designated areas, but the usual diplomatic chatter was absent. Instead, a heavy silence filled the massive dome-shaped room as she walked to the human delegation's platform. The research findings from Han Sol's team had reached the Council 3 days ago. Since then, emergency sessions had been running around the clock. Jin-A could see fear in the body language of species she had worked with for years. Even the normally confident Altarians were keeping their eye stalks lowered. Council Speaker Thren, a tall reptilian being from the Rigel system, called the session to order. His scales were darker than usual, a sign of stress among his people. "We gather today to discuss the human archaeological discoveries," Thren announced. "Discoveries that confirm our oldest fears about Earth's inhabitants." Jin-A felt her stomach tighten. She had expected political resistance to humanity's expansion into space, but not this level of barely controlled panic. "For the human representative who may not understand the gravity of this situation," Thren continued, looking directly at Ginny, "we must reveal information that the Council has kept secret for millennia." A holographic display activated in the center of the chamber. It showed a timeline stretching back over 50,000 years, marking the rise and fall of various galactic civilizations. "Every species represented in this council knows the stories," Thren said. 12 great civilizations that reached heights of technology and culture we still cannot match. The Velrani, the Corvani, the Draknari, and others, all of them vanished mysteriously at the peak of their power. Dr. Tejo, the human psychologist Jin-A had brought as an advisor, was taking notes rapidly. His specialization in alien behavior patterns made him invaluable for understanding interspecies politics. "What we have never told the humans," Thren continued, "is that these civilizations did not vanish mysteriously. They vanished because they made the same mistake. They discovered Earth." The chamber erupted in nervous chittering and growling from various species. Jin-A realized that every alien in the room already knew this story. Only the humans had been kept ignorant. "Each civilization that discovered Earth began monitoring your species," Thren explained, "and each one reached the same conclusion. Humans represented an existential threat to galactic peace and stability." Intelligence Officer Hia Jin, who had been quietly recording everything, leaned forward. "What kind of threat? We were primitive when most of these civilizations existed. We barely had fire when the Velrani were monitoring us." Speaker Thren's scales darkened further. "The threat was not your technology. It was your behavior. Every species in this galaxy evolved from prey animals that required extensive rest periods to survive. We have natural limits built into our biology and psychology." He gestured to the various alien representatives. "The Altarians must hibernate for 6 months each year. The Draconids require 18 hours of rest each day. The Zeridians enter dormancy cycles every few weeks. These rest periods are not weakness. They are necessary for our survival. But humans," he continued, his voice growing strained, "show no such limitations. Your species eliminated the need for extended rest. You modified your own sleep cycles to require minimal downtime. To our ancestors, this made you appear supernatural." Dr. Tejo was beginning to understand. "You see human persistence as unnatural because it goes against every biological pattern you know." "Exactly," Thren replied. "Our monitoring stations have watched Earth for 50,000 years. We have observed your cities that never go dark, your industries that never stop producing, your research that continues through every season without pause." Jin-A looked around the chamber at the alien faces. Fear was the dominant emotion, but she was starting to understand it was not fear of human violence. It was fear of human endurance. "The reports from our monitoring stations describe patterns that are disturbing to our worldview," Thren admitted. "Human civilizations that rebuild stronger after every disaster. Human individuals who treat failure as motivation rather than discouragement. Human societies that see obstacles as problems to solve rather than limitations to accept." Hee-Jin had accessed her personal database and was cross-referencing the information. "You have been spying on us for 50,000 years? And you never made contact?" We were too afraid, Thren said simply. Every civilization that made direct contact with Earth either vanished completely or left warnings for others to stay away. The pattern was too clear to ignore. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Jin'ei realized that humanity had been isolated not by accident or by cosmic distance, but by deliberate galactic policy. What exactly did those monitoring reports say about us? She asked. Thren activated another display showing excerpts from surveillance reports spanning thousands of years. Here is a sample from our most recent observations. Human settlements in the Arctic regions where no other known species could survive. Human deep-sea research stations that operate continuously in environments that would kill most galactic races. Human space stations that maintain operations without seasonal breaks or extended maintenance periods. Dr. Tejo was studying the reports with growing fascination. You have been documenting our refusal to accept environmental limitations. Your species treats the impossible as merely difficult, Thren replied. When faced with problems that would cause other species to retreat or adapt by changing themselves, humans change their environment instead. More reports appeared on the display. Human agriculture that forced food to grow in deserts. Human medicine that extended lifespans beyond natural limits. Human transportation that allowed travel at any time of year regardless of weather conditions. The most disturbing reports came from your Industrial Revolution. Thren continued. Most species develop technology gradually, with long pauses for consolidation and rest. But human technological advancement accelerated continuously. Each generation built upon the previous without taking time to fully understand what they had created. Jin'ei was beginning to see the terrifying picture the aliens had constructed of humanity. You see us as a species that refuses to accept natural limits. We see you as a species that will eventually consume everything, Thren said bluntly. Not through malice, but through sheer relentless expansion. Every model our scientists have created shows the same result. Once humans begin expanding beyond Earth, they will never stop. The fear in the chamber was palpable now. Representatives from dozens of species were looking at the small human delegation as if they were looking at an approaching storm. The civilizations that tried to stop you early learned a terrible lesson, Thren said. You cannot defeat an enemy that refuses to stay defeated. You cannot outlast an enemy that never truly rests. You cannot discourage an enemy that treats every setback as a learning experience. Jin had been analyzing the data and reached a disturbing conclusion. The fleets that were sent to destroy early human civilization. They did not fail because of human technology. They failed because of human psychology. Correct, Thren admitted. Stone Age humans should not have been able to defeat starships. But somehow they did. Not through superior weapons, but through superior determination. The few reports that made it back described humans who would not surrender even when facing impossible odds. Dr. Tejo looked up from his notes. You have been afraid of us for 50,000 years because we never learned to give up. And now you have learned to travel between stars, Thren said, his voice heavy with dread. The nightmare scenario that 12 civilizations warned about is finally coming true. Humanity is leaving Earth. The chamber erupted in fearful discussion as representatives began talking among themselves in their native languages. Jin'ei caught fragments of conversation. Most of it focused on strategies for containment or elimination. What exactly are you proposing we do about this? She asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. Speaker Thren's scales had turned almost black with stress. The council has been debating two options. Either humanity accepts permanent restrictions on expansion and genetic modifications to introduce proper rest cycles, or we implement the final solution that 12 civilizations attempted and failed to achieve. The meaning was clear. Humanity would be modified to fit galactic norms, or humanity would be destroyed. Jin'ei looked around the chamber at faces that had once seemed friendly, now twisted with fear and hostility. The galaxy had been afraid of humans for 50,000 years, and now that fear was about to turn into action. The question was whether humanity could survive what was coming, or if they would join the 12 vanished civilizations that had dared to threaten the galactic order by simply refusing to accept defeat. Dr. Kyung-ho stood before the assembled Galactic Council with a datapad full of research that would either save humanity or doom it. The biologist had spent the last month analyzing every piece of information available about human evolution and comparing it to the biological patterns of the 47 species represented in the chamber-honored council members, he began, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. I believe there has been a fundamental misunderstanding about human nature. With your permission, I would like to present evidence that may change your perspective. Speaker Thren's scales were still dark with stress, but he gestured for Kyung-ho to continue. Present your evidence, human scientist. But know that the council has already begun preparing for the final solution, if your words cannot ease our fears. Kyung-ho activated a holographic display showing evolutionary trees for multiple species. Every sapient race in this galaxy shares a common evolutionary pattern. You all evolved from prey animals that survived by hiding, hibernating, or entering dormancy states when faced with overwhelming threats. The display showed various alien species in their natural rest states. Altarians curled into defensive balls, draconids burrowing underground for months, Zeridians entering suspended animation during harsh seasons. These survival strategies are encoded in your biology, Kyung-ho explained. When you face impossible problems, your instinct is to retreat and wait for conditions to improve. This is not weakness. This is successful adaptation that allowed your ancestors to survive and eventually develop intelligence. Engineer Min-ho, who had been working with Kyung-ho on the research, stepped forward with technical specifications. We analyzed your sleep requirements, seasonal behaviors, and work patterns. Every galactic species requires between 12 and 18 hours of dormancy per day, plus extended hibernation or rest periods. But humans evolved differently, Kyung-ho continued. We descended from persistence hunters. Our ancestors survived not by hiding from threats, but by outlasting them. We evolved to chase prey for days or weeks until it died of exhaustion. The holographic display showed early human hunting patterns. Groups of primitive humans following animal herds across vast distances, never giving up, never stopping, until their prey finally collapsed. This hunting strategy required biological modifications that no other known species developed, Kyung-ho explained. We reduced our sleep requirements to 6 to 8 hours. We eliminated seasonal hibernation completely. We developed the ability to function efficiently during extended periods of stress. Commander Jae-sun, who had been studying the military implications, added his own analysis. What you see as supernatural persistence is simply human biology, working as it evolved to work. We are not choosing to be relentless. We are biologically programmed for it. The alien representatives were listening intently now, their fear beginning to mix with curiosity. Speaker Thren leaned forward. Are you saying humans cannot help this behavior? We are saying that what you call unreasonable persistence we call normal behavior, Kyung-ho replied. When humans face a problem that seems impossible, we do not have the biological programming to give up and wait. Our brains are wired to keep trying until we find a solution. Min-ho brought up data from human space stations and lunar colonies. Look at our current space operations. We maintain continuous activity cycles that would be impossible for other species. Our Mars research station has been operating without significant breaks for 3 years. Your longest continuous operation would be maybe 6 months before you needed extended downtime for crew rest. Jae-sun added, addressing the council. We can maintain operations indefinitely by rotating personnel without stopping the work. Dr. Taeho, who had been studying alien psychology, presented his findings about the cultural implications. This biological difference has created a fundamental gap in how our species approach challenges. When you encounter a problem, you analyze it, attempt solutions, and then enter a rest period to let your minds process the results. But humans cannot enter that rest period, Kyung-ho explained. Our minds continue working on problems even during sleep. We dream about solutions. We wake up with new ideas. Our problem-solving never actually stops. The holographic display showed brain activity patterns during sleep for various species. Alien brains showed periods of almost complete inactivity during rest. Human brains remained active throughout their shorter sleep cycles, processing information and forming new connections. This is why human technological advancement appears so frightening to you, Min-ho said. We are not choosing to advance relentlessly. We literally cannot stop ourselves from trying to improve things. Ambassador Jinne, who had been watching the alien representatives carefully, noticed a shift in their body language. Fear was being replaced by something that might have been understanding. Speaker Thren spoke slowly, as if testing a new concept. You are saying that human persistence is not a choice but a biological necessity? Exactly, Kyung-ho confirmed. When ancient civilizations sent fleets to destroy early human communities, they were not defeated by superior human technology or tactics. They were defeated by humans who could not surrender even when surrender was the logical choice. Stone Age humans faced impossible odds and kept fighting simply because giving up was not programmed into their biology, Jae-sun added. They adapted, learned from each attack, and found ways to survive because stopping was not an option their brains could process. The implications were staggering. Hee-jin, who had been cross-referencing historical data, found patterns that supported the theory. Every recorded human disaster follows the same pattern. Initial shock, rapid adaptation, then rebuilding that exceeds the original. We do not just recover from setbacks, we use them as launching points for improvement. The civilizations that monitored Earth saw this pattern and interpreted it as supernatural stubbornness, Taeho explained. But it was just biology. Humans rebuild stronger after disasters because our brains cannot accept that the original design was adequate. Speaker Thren was quiet for a long moment, processing the information. Around the chamber, other representatives were discussing the revelations in hushed tones. If what you say is true, Thren finally said, then the warnings left by the vanished civilizations were based on a misunderstanding of human nature. The warnings were accurate about what humans do, Kyung-ho replied. We do expand relentlessly. We do refuse to accept defeat. We do treat every failure as a temporary setback. But we do these things because of evolutionary programming, not because of malicious intent. Minho pulled up projections showing human expansion patterns. Our models show that human expansion into space will follow the same biological imperatives that drove our ancestors to spread across Earth. We will establish colonies, improve them continuously, and expand further when resources and technology permit. But, Jae-sun added, human expansion is not conquest in the way other species understand it. We do not expand to dominate or control others. We expand because our biology drives us to seek new challenges and opportunities. The difference, Kyung-ho concluded, is that human expansion includes cooperation and symbiosis. Our persistence hunters succeeded by working in groups. Modern humans still carry that cooperative instinct. He showed examples of human behavior in crisis situations, disaster relief efforts that continued for years, international cooperation on impossible projects, scientific collaboration that spanned decades. Humans are persistent, but we are also cooperative, he explained. We want to solve problems not just for ourselves, but for everyone. That is why human technology is shared rather than hoarded. That is why human colonies welcome other species rather than excluding them. The chamber fell silent as the council processed this new understanding of human nature. The fear was still there, but it was no longer blind terror. It was the thoughtful concern of beings trying to understand something fundamentally different from themselves. Speaker Thren finally spoke. If humans cannot change their biological programming, and if human expansion is inevitable, then the question becomes whether the galaxy can coexist with a species that never stops growing and changing. That, Jinne said, is exactly what we hope to find out. The Council had a choice to make. They could continue viewing human persistence as a threat to be eliminated, or they could try to understand it as a force that might benefit everyone. The decision they made would determine whether humanity joined the ranks of vanished civilizations or became something entirely new in galactic history. War Chief Draken of the Altarian Defense Force stood at the center of the Galactic Council chambers, his massive form casting shadows across the assembly floor. Unlike the diplomatic discussions of previous days, this session carried the weight of military authority. 47 species had sent their highest-ranking military leaders, and the atmosphere was thick with the tension of impending conflict. The council has deliberated for 7 days, Draken announced, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. We have heard human arguments about biology and evolution. We have listened to explanations about cooperation and symbiosis, but facts remain unchanged. Ambassador Jinne sat with her human delegation, knowing that everything they had worked for was about to be decided. The past week of presentations and discussions had shifted some opinions, but fear still dominated the galactic mindset. 12 civilizations left warnings about Earth, Draken continued. 12 civilizations that were more advanced than any species currently in this council, All of them vanished after encountering humanity. This pattern cannot be ignored. General Hyun-woo, Earth's top military strategist, had arrived on the diplomatic vessel just hours earlier. His presence signaled that humanity was taking the Council's concerns seriously, but also that Earth was prepared for whatever decision emerged from these chambers. The human delegation has provided interesting theories about biological programming, Draken said, his forearms gesturing dismissively. But theories do not change the fundamental threat that persistent expansion represents to galactic stability. Dr. So-min, the geneticist who had been brought in to assess modification possibilities, stepped forward to present her findings. The Council has asked whether human biological programming can be altered to include proper dormancy cycles. I must report that such modifications are not feasible. She activated a holographic display showing human neural architecture. Human sleep patterns are integrated with our entire nervous system, memory formation, creativity, and problem-solving abilities. Changing our rest requirements would fundamentally alter everything that makes humans human. It would be like trying to remove flight capability from a bird while expecting it to remain a bird, she explained. The modifications would destroy the very intelligence and adaptability that define our species. War Chief Draken had expected this answer, but hearing it confirmed made his scales darken with frustration. Then the Council is left with only one viable option. President Ji-won of the United Earth Assembly had remained silent throughout most of the proceedings, but now she stood to address the Council directly. Before you make your final decision, there is something else you need to consider. She activated her own holographic display, showing data that made several alien representatives gasp in recognition. While we have been talking here, my government has been conducting its own archaeological investigation. We found records that none of the previous expeditions discovered. The display showed ruins on a world at the edge of known space, older than any of the 12 vanished civilizations. These are Corvani ruins, but not from their homeworld. This was their final colony, established just before their empire collapsed. Dr. Han Sol, who had led the investigation team, provided the translation of the newly discovered records. The final Corvani survivors left a complete account of what happened to their civilization. They were not destroyed by humans. They destroyed themselves. The revelation sent shockwaves through the assembly. War Chief Draken leaned forward, his military mind immediately grasping the implications. Explain. The Corvani Empire spent decades preparing for war with Earth, Han Sol continued. They militarized their entire civilization, converting peaceful colonies into fortress worlds. They redirected all resources toward building the largest war fleet in their history. But Earth was still in the Stone Age, President Ji-won added. Humans had not even developed agriculture yet. The Corvani were preparing to fight cavemen with weapons that could destroy planets. The holographic display showed the progression of Corvani militarization. Peaceful trade networks converted to military supply lines. Scientific research redirected toward weapons development. Entire generations raised for war against an enemy that posed no immediate threat. The strain of permanent war preparation destroyed their economy, Han Sol explained. Their culture became so focused on the theoretical human threat that they stopped maintaining the basic systems their civilization needed to function. By the time they were ready to launch their final fleet against Earth, their homeworld was already collapsing. President Ji-won continued. Food production had stopped. Infrastructure was failing. The population was dying of diseases they had forgotten how to treat because all their doctors had become weapons specialists. War Chief Draken was studying the data with growing unease. You are saying they committed civilizational suicide while preparing to fight humans who were not even aware they existed? All 12 civilizations followed similar patterns, Dr. So-min confirmed. They became so obsessed with the theoretical threat of human expansion that they destroyed themselves trying to prevent it. The evidence was overwhelming and terrifying in its implications. Jin-A realized that the humans had uncovered the real reason why advanced civilizations kept vanishing. It was not because they encountered Earth, it was because they became afraid of Earth. Fear of human persistence caused these civilizations to abandon the very qualities that made them great, President Ji-won explained. They stopped exploring. They stopped creating. They stopped growing. They focused entirely on preventing change, which made them vulnerable to stagnation and collapse. General Hyun-woo, who had been analyzing the military data, provided his assessment. The fleet sent to destroy early human civilization failed, not because Stone Age humans defeated them militarily. They failed because the civilizations that sent them had already weakened themselves beyond the point of sustaining major military operations. By the time those fleets reached Earth, their home civilizations were already dying, he continued. The fleets probably never returned home because there were no homes left to return to. The chamber fell into stunned silence as the implications sank in. The great mystery of the 12 vanished civilizations had been solved, but the answer was more disturbing than anyone had expected. You are telling us, Speaker Thren said slowly, that the threat was never human expansion. The threat was fear of human expansion, fear that caused advanced civilizations to stop being what made them advanced, President Jiwan confirmed. They became so focused on preventing human success that they forgot how to be successful themselves. War Chief Draken looked around the chamber at the representatives of 47 species, all of whom had spent years preparing for the human threat. And you believe we are making the same mistake? Look at the evidence, Janae said. How many resources has the Council diverted from exploration and development to monitor and contain humanity? How many scientific projects have been abandoned to focus on military preparations? How much progress has been delayed by fear of what humans might do? The questions hit their target. Several representatives began discussing among themselves, realizing how much their fear of humanity had already changed their civilizations. But War Chief Draken was not convinced. Even if fear contributed to their downfall, the fundamental problem remains. Human expansion will eventually challenge every established territory and resource allocation in the galaxy. Then maybe, President Jiwan said quietly, the problem is not human expansion. Maybe the problem is galactic stagnation. She gestured to the council chamber, which had remained essentially unchanged for thousands of years. When was the last time this council approved a major exploration initiative? When did any member species last establish a significant new colony? When did anyone in this room last feel excited about the future instead of afraid of it? The silence that followed was deafening. President Jiwan had identified something that everyone knew, but no one had wanted to admit. The galaxy had become comfortable, settled, and increasingly resistant to change. Humanity represents something that this galaxy has not seen for millennia, she continued. A species that still believes the future can be better than the present. A species that still takes risks for the sake of discovery. A species that still dreams of impossible things and then makes them possible. War Chief Draken considered her words carefully. And you believe the galaxy benefits from such disruption? I believe the galaxy dies without it, President Jiwan replied. Just like those 12 civilizations died when they chose fear over growth. The Council now faced a decision that would define the future of galactic civilization. They could destroy humanity and continue their slow decline into comfortable stagnation, or they could embrace the chaos and opportunity that human expansion represented. War Chief Draken made the announcement that would determine humanity's fate. The Council will vote. But know that if we choose coexistence, everything changes. The galaxy will never be peaceful and predictable again. President Jiwan smiled. Good. Peace and predictability are what killed the last 12 civilizations. Maybe it is time for something new. Admiral Sungmi stood on the bridge of the UESS Persistence, watching the largest alien fleet in recorded history emerge from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. 237 warships from 47 different species had come to deliver the Galactic Council's final decision. The vote had been close, but fear had ultimately won over hope. 6 months had passed since the Council's ultimatum, and Earth's response had been everything the galaxy had feared, and nothing they had expected. Instead of preparing for war in the traditional sense, humanity had done what humans always did when faced with impossible odds. They had adapted. Dr. Wansik floated in the zero-gravity manufacturing bay of Orbital Station Endeavour, one of 12 massive construction platforms that now surrounded Earth like mechanical moons. In the months since learning about the galactic threat, humans had not built weapons. They had built infrastructure. Construction rate is exceeding all projections, Wansik reported to Admiral Sungmi through his communication link. We are completing one new orbital platform every 3 days. The asteroid mining operations are providing more raw materials than we can process. The transformation of Earth's orbital space was staggering. What had taken other species decades to build, humans had accomplished in months by working in continuous shifts around the clock. 3 8-hour rotations meant that construction never stopped, manufacturing never paused, and progress never slowed. Captain Inho commanded one of the new ships built according to human endurance principles. The vessels looked strange to alien eyes because they were designed around the assumption that crew would never need extended rest periods. Where alien ships had large hibernation quarters and seasonal shutdown systems, human ships had redundant crew quarters and continuous operation capabilities. Fleet Status Report. Admiral Sungmi requested as the alien armada continued its approach. 87 ships ready for deployment, Inho replied. All vessels operating at full capacity with fresh crews rotating every 8 hours. No downtime required. The human fleet was smaller than the approaching alien force, but it operated on principles that alien military doctrine could not easily counter. While alien ships needed to retreat periodically for crew rest and system maintenance, human vessels could maintain combat operations indefinitely. As the alien fleet moved deeper into the solar system, they encountered the first surprise. Earth's asteroid belt was not empty as their intelligence had indicated. Hundreds of human mining operations were active throughout the region, extracting resources and converting asteroids into defensive platforms. War Chief Draken, commanding the alien fleet from his flagship, studied the tactical displays with growing confusion. Why are there so many human installations? Our last survey showed minimal space infrastructure. His intelligence officer, a nervous Zeridian named Klex, provided the unsettling answer. The installations are new. All of them have been built within the last 6 months. Human construction has continued without interruption since the Council delivered its ultimatum. Without interruption? Draken asked. For 6 months? Yes, War Chief. Our monitoring stations report that human space construction operates continuously. No rest periods, no seasonal pauses, no maintenance shutdowns that last longer than a few hours. Draken felt the familiar chill that came with encountering human capabilities that defied alien understanding. 6 months of continuous construction would have exhausted any galactic species. Most civilizations would have needed at least 2 major rest periods during that time. The alien fleet pressed forward, but encountered more surprises with each passing hour. Human defensive platforms were not placed according to standard military doctrine. Instead of creating defensive lines that could be breached, humans had distributed their defenses throughout the entire solar system in a pattern that seemed random but proved impossible to avoid. They are not fighting like warriors, Draken observed as his fleet began taking fire from unexpected directions. They are fighting like a virus that adapts. Every time the alien fleet adjusted their tactics to counter human defenses, they discovered that the humans had already adapted to the counter tactics. Defensive platforms repositioned themselves continuously. New weapons configurations appeared faster than alien intelligence could catalog them. Admiral Sungmi coordinated the defense from her position near Mars, but the battle was being fought by thousands of individual human commanders who made decisions independently and shared information instantly. While the alien fleet struggled with command hierarchies and communication delays between species, the human defense network operated like a single organism with distributed intelligence. They are learning from every exchange, Captain Inho reported after completing his 3rd engagement run. Each time they adapt their shields, we have already developed a counter-adaptation. Each time they change formation, we have already adjusted our attack patterns. But the most unsettling aspect of the battle was not human tactical flexibility. It was human endurance. Hours passed, then days, and the human defenders showed no signs of fatigue or reduced efficiency. Crews rotated seamlessly without interrupting operations. Damaged ships were repaired without leaving the battle zone. Systems that should have needed maintenance continued functioning at peak performance. The alien fleet, designed for short decisive engagements followed by rest periods, began showing strain after the first 24 hours of continuous combat. Crews needed sleep. Ships needed maintenance. Command structures needed time to process information and make decisions. This is impossible, Draken muttered as he reviewed casualty reports. They have been fighting for 48 hours without any reduction in combat effectiveness. How are they sustaining this? Klex provided readings from their biological scanners. The human crews appear to be rotating in perfect synchronization. When one group rests, another takes over without any interruption in operations. Their ships are designed to function with multiple complete crews. Multiple crews? Draken had never heard of such a concept. In alien military doctrine, ships were built around single crews that operated together for efficiency. The idea of multiple crews sharing the same vessel seemed wasteful and chaotic. It appears that human ships can maintain operations indefinitely by rotating personnel while keeping the vessel active, Klex explained. They never need to withdraw for crew rest because they always have fresh personnel available. By the third day of combat, the alien fleet was showing serious signs of degradation. Crew performance was declining due to extended activity without proper rest. Ship systems were developing maintenance issues from operating beyond their designed endurance limits. Command decisions were becoming slower and less effective as fatigue affected alien leadership. The human defenders, meanwhile, appeared to be getting stronger. They had learned from 3 days of combat experience and adapted their tactics accordingly. Fresh crews brought new energy and perspectives to every engagement. Continuous manufacturing meant that lost equipment was being replaced faster than it could be destroyed. War Chief, Klex reported with obvious distress, our combat effectiveness has decreased by 37%. The humans show no reduction in capability. At current rates, we will be unable to maintain offensive operations within 2 more days. Draken realized with growing horror that the human defenders were not just fighting a battle. They were fighting a war of attrition that they could not lose because they never became tired, never stopped learning, and never stopped adapting. Send a message to the human fleet, he ordered. Request negotiations. Admiral Sungmi received the alien transmission and felt a mixture of relief and sadness. Relief because the fighting could end. Sadness because once again fear had driven conflict where cooperation might have flourished. This is Admiral Sungmi of the Earth Defense Force, she replied. We are willing to discuss terms. War Chief Draken found himself in the unprecedented position of requesting surrender terms from a species his fleet had come to destroy. We acknowledge that our mission cannot be completed. Human defensive capabilities exceed our projections. We did not want this fight, Sungmi replied. We hoped the galaxy could learn to coexist with human expansion rather than fear it. Your species is everything the warning said it would be, Draken admitted. You do not fight like any known military doctrine. You do not tire like other species. You do not accept defeat even when facing overwhelming odds. Because we cannot, Sungmi explained. This is simply how we are built. But that same persistence that you fear in war can be directed toward peace, cooperation, and mutual benefit. Dr. Hansol, who had been monitoring the negotiations from Earth Station Alpha, provided the historical context that might ease alien fears. The 12 civilizations that vanished were not destroyed by human aggression. They were destroyed by their own fear of human persistence. You have a choice. You can follow their path or you can choose to grow alongside us. What exactly are you proposing? Draken asked. Partnership, Admiral Sungmi replied. Human persistence combined with galactic wisdom. Human endurance supporting galactic exploration. Human adaptation enhancing galactic stability. She transmitted data showing human civilian projects that had been running parallel to military preparations.